Welcome to a brand new week, and we have 55 minutes in 5 places to do business today. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we start doing business as usual with what's going on in the global oil space, where prices are down today after previous sessions of rise, as Iran's deadly crackdown on protests quelled civil unrest, narrowing chances for a U.S. May attack on the major Middle Eastern producer that could disrupt supply. So we see the numbers at this time. A drop is what we have. That's why we have the color red, 0.80% for Brent. The price at $63.62 a barrel. WTI is also down 0.66% at $59.05 a barrel. Iran's violent crackdown on protests, that's spurred economic hardship in the country. And there are figures of about 5,000 people being killed so far. US President Donald Trump seemed to step up from his earlier threats of intervention, saying on social media that Iran had called off mass hangings of protesters, although the country had not announced any of such plans. Let's look at the weekly close for Nigeria's equity market, and we see that the all share closed at 166,000 level. For the week, it gained 2.36%. Equity cap 2.48% up for the week, and we've gone far beyond, the 104 and all closed at 106,000. Sectors for last week did all closed in the green, from banking looking really good there, consumer goods, industrial goods, insurance, as well as oil and gas. And must note that oil and gas has recovered from the previous week, which it didn't do so well. We saw it really positive last week. For top gainers, NCR again, still in the top trades there. Square Nigeria and Deep Capital, they were the top gainers for the week. And then top losers, Ikeja Hotel, Austin Lars. We know that the CEO made some moves last week, and expectedly that brought a lot of profit taking on their shares. That's the CEO there made about more than 200 million naira out of major sales, and so of course other investors followed suit. Eternal All PLC was also part of the losers last week. Top trades for the week: Sovereign Trust Insurance, Access Holdings, and Linkage Insurance. I wonder what's happening with Access Holdings. I think for about 2 weeks now, we've seen it in the red, profit taking going on there consistently. So I guess that's a good opportunity for some investors to get on board just before the recovery starts on that stock. And still within the market, we see Geregu Power PLC. They've shared their 2025 financial results, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter. Let's see a bit of what the result has. Geregu PLC, we have revenue increased to 184.94 billion from 137. That's what they had in 2024. Profit before income tax rose to 41.99 billion last year from 41.27. So we see that the difference there isn't so much. It's just, right there at this end. That's where you have the difference when it comes to profit before income tax. Then profit for the year stood at expectedly, because of course this comes from this, so you don't expect it to be far away. So you see just a difference right here, 27.25 from 27.43 in 2024. Total comprehensive income reported at 27.31 billion for the year 2025. Let's leave the markets for a bit now and back to that conversation on the new inflation numbers, which we saw on Thursday. The Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, they've reacted to the December inflation number released by the National Bureau of Statistics last week. It showed an increase of 15.15% in the Consumer Price Index. And of course, we saw a recalculation of the November numbers, and we saw it being raised from about 14.45, which is what we had initially for November. We saw it up to 17 instead, which led to the conversations which you saw that inflation dropped in December. I'm sure a whole lot of economists will still be talking about that in the coming days. So CPPE now is citing the recent change in the methodology for computing the CPI. The Economic and Policy think tank raised concerns about the credibility of the inflation data despite its positive impact for the economy. The CPP explains that while inflation is easing because of decline in food prices, the structural drivers of high costs, particularly energy, transportation, logistics, and insecurity, remain firmly in place and are undermining price stability. Well, the CPP is also emphasizing that sustaining the decline of inflation requires closer alignment between fiscal and monetary authorities and has asked the NBS to strengthen its technical and analytical capacity. And now we know that conversations in Davos begin today, the World Economic Forum. And for this week, we'll be hearing a whole lot coming from Davos in Switzerland. Conversations on the economy, obviously. Agriculture, proud to say that our Bank of Agriculture is there. So we expect a lot of conversations there. The Minister of Investment, Trade and Investment is also there. We hope to have her on the program later on this week. And for the very first time, we have the Nigeria House in Davos. They already have a lot of activities scheduled for the week at the Nigeria House. These are conversations we'll be having with the minister, hopefully. But even before the minister comes, we have our own correspondent from Channels Television, Emperor Simon. He's there and ready, obviously, to give us updates, beginning with this morning.
It's a cold morning in Switzerland, and this is where the World Economic Forum is taking place. As a matter of fact, it's the 56th this year in series. And world leaders from the government, business, cycle, the civil society organizations are expected to converge here, including members of the academia, who will be gathering for the next 1 week to look at global issues. The theme of the 2026 World Economic Forum is a spirit of dialogue. It's going to be a platform that will provide opportunities for world leaders, like I said, cutting across government, civil society, academia, as well as the business circle, to gather and discuss about global issues, issues affecting the entire world, including the emergence of artificial intelligence, climate change, and a whole lot of issues that will be discussed during this period. Nigeria is set. The Vice President of Nigeria, His Excellency Kashim Shettima, arrived yesterday for the meeting. He's expected to hold bilateral meetings. But one of the striking issues for this 56th World Economic Forum is the unveiling, or what you'll say, the opening of the Nigerian House here in Davos. And that house is expected to be a platform that will bring investors, that are interested in Nigeria, in investing in Nigeria. So we're going to be seeing Nigeria trying to woo investors in the areas of innovation, creative economy, sustainable agriculture, as well as solid minerals.
Well, that's Emperor Simon. We'll see more of him all through this week as, of course, the meetings there start. Is there to give us updates of what's going to be happening as following the Nigerian story and other countries that are there. I think one highlight of this year's meeting, World Economic Forum, is that President Trump is expected on Wednesday. Yeah, so we hear President Trump is going to be there to ensure that the Greenland comes to the United States. We don't know what he's going to see or what he's going to say, but we know that everybody will be glued on Wednesday when President Trump is expected to be there. Other than that, as I said earlier, there's the Nigeria House there packed with activities. The Bank of Agriculture will be there. The ministers will be there. Nigeria's team is led by the vice president. But of course, when it comes to business, we do have Minister Jumoke there and a lot of activities around her. Trade will be a major conversation right there. So Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala is going to be there also. I think she has one session on Wednesday or Thursday at the Nigeria House. So we know that conversations around trade there will cover intra-African trade and beyond, especially when we see President Trump and the new set of tariffs. Those also will be part of it. So the World Economic Forum is going to dominate conversations this week. A lot of VIPs, global VIPs, in Davos, Switzerland, and they'll be giving us the news. And of course, we trust that you will stay with us right here on Channels Television, where our crew will be feeding us, and then we'll be feeding you with everything that's happening right there. In Nigeria here, the new tax law is still a major conversation. It's still prominent to individuals, manufacturers, and companies. One group that has recently held its own meeting is the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. In this meeting, they invited Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, and he highlights some of the benefits that will accrue to manufacturers in the new law. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is holding a hybrid stakeholders engagement with the theme From Legislative Assembly to Factory Floor, what the new tax law mean for Nigerian manufacturers. It's another opportunity for the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, to highlight parts of the new tax law.
As a manufacturer, you spend a lot of money on assets. Your sector, for many of you, is capital intensive. You buy equipment, you buy plants, machinery, you buy vehicles from, transport vehicles to other things, even official cars. Those inputs, your assets, as well as you pay for services, technical services, audits, consulting. You also pay for softwares. So even things that are not physical, you pay for them and they carry VAT. Under the old system, those VAT are your costs to bear. Under the new law, those VAT costs are recoverable 100%. You get the money back.
While the manufacturers are excited about the benefits of the law, they are concerned about getting a harmonized front for proper implementation.
Successful tax policies will require full alignment between the states, the local governments, and the federal government. So the subnationals must be carried along. And happily, like he announced, we now have at least 10 states that have passed laws that are in full alignment with the federal law.
One of the things that is obvious in any good tax law is not just to really impose taxes, it's to do a win-win. Okay, if you create an enabler, have an enabler that makes us to do more business, then definitely you're going to get tax on those businesses that you do. So you get much more money on the larger volume of business that you do than getting higher percentage or whatever money you want to get on little business.
The manufacturers believe that an efficient tax system would ease their work and accelerate the achievement of a 10.2% contribution to the nation's gross domestic product in 2026. Let's take a short break now. When we come back, of course, other burning issues on the Nigerian economy will be a conversation here on Business Morning. Of course, inflation is part of it. We'll talk to you after the break. Please stay with us. Yeah, welcome back. So last week, a lot of economists were actually kind of reluctant to comment on the December inflation, because so many questions were left unanswered, even though we had the head of department of prices and statistics, trade statistics, from the National Bureau of Statistics on the program, trying to help us understand what methodology change again that we had. Remember, we just had a change of methodology by December, between December 2024 and January 2025. So we're expecting the December inflation number to have a spike. Even the NBS had warned us before then to say we should expect a spike in the December inflation number because of the year-on-year impacts, because, of course, the new methodology started in January 2025. So by December 2024, we're still on the old methodology, and then suddenly we saw the numbers from the NBS, and there was no spike. In fact, instead of that, we saw a drop in inflation because November inflation number, which had been placed at about 14%, was now at 17%. And that meant that having December inflation at 15.15%, there was a drop between November and December. Well, let's find out what Dr. Ayodele thinks about all of this. We heard earlier about from Dr. Muda Yusuf of CPPE. Let's find out what Dr. Ebo thinks. Dr. Ebo, good morning, and good to have you on the program.
Yeah, good morning, Ini.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the December inflation? First, we saw a recalculation of November inflation to over 17%, and then we now see December inflation drop, in spite of the fact that we had been warned earlier by economists, even by the NBS, that there will be a spike in December.
Yeah, so I think firstly, some of these happenings also impacts on confidence. While we know that NBS is the reference point for the data, which we all have to work with, some of these new developments have impacted on the confidence around the data. So if you recall, just a year ago, investors are still trying to come to terms with the new rebates, given a lot of the changes which led to the moderation that we are seeing. And with the same NBS also informing us that we should expect a spike due to the rebasing. So I feel that let me just assume that some of the rules that they have also adopted now, they might be in existence, may be correct, but what the feeler is that, are they doing this to, you adopt some rules that favors you? It's always been in existence even before the last rebate. So are you doing this to ensure that it aligns with your expectation? These are some of the questions that it will throw up. So I don't think it's portrayed us in a good light, having some of this distortion, while it aligns with global standard, but I would say that maybe it could have been handled better, given that the same organization is coming up with two different views within a space of a month. Sometimes they say action speaks louder than, yeah. So I think that's going to be my view. So you look at the November numbers based on the review, currently at 17.33 compared to about 14.5 that we had at the last, using the old methodology, if we'll put it that way. So, but we just have to move forward, and maybe everyone learns their lesson from this. Thank you.
So, Dr. Ebo, from what you hear, we had an old methodology that was used in December. Then, December 2024, and then we had a rebasing and the new methodology that came into effect by January 2025. Now, we don't know, is it back to the former old or the new old? What can we expect? Because the truth is, even before now, a lot of Nigerians did not have a lot of confidence from the data that comes from the NBS. And now we have this. So the level of trust drops even further. And I mean, which methodology are we sticking to now? Because whichever, even if we change our methodology now, when you come to year on year by this time next year, we're still going to have almost the same effects.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So if we recall, coming from that's 2024 December to January, what we had was a rebase, which means and also a change in the weightings of the weightings of the baskets. You know, inflation, it's a basket of goods, and the methodology was 1 point using a year on year, and now using an average. Yes, in analysis, you can call it normalization, but even when you look at in accounting, yes, as an accountant, you also don't change when you are using one principle. You see recognition of depreciation, for instance. You can't change from the straight line method suddenly and you change to reducing balance. That is why, so that you don't see like you are managing your books. That's why those rules have been there. If you are going to choose a methodology, you should be able to see forward and align with that methodology. But changing we say you are changing the rules in the middle of the game, actually have very negative perception. You can see based on like what you are saying now, are we going to expect that if the data does not favor us again, are we going to go back to another methodology? These are questions that Nigerians will be asking, and it's really important that we don't get ourselves this, because what most people want to hear on the street, for some when you approach, people approach you and say, you guys are economists, what's going on? Are we trying to walk back to are we walking from the answer to, we're walking from answer to the question? Is that what is going on? So these are some of the things that I think will not really project well. So I don't expect that there should be any within the next 2-3 years. You know, rebasing is, I think, 4 years that you statistically that you can rebase, but we don't expect that methodology should also now change again within the next 1 year if we see a misalignment in data. So this really does not really augur well for the perception for foreign investors. Look at which methodology would they be, because most analysts have done their projection looking at using the old methodology. So for the MBS to come up with a new methodology within a short period, yes, when you look at the rules globally, it's part of global practice. But you know, we have rules, and sometimes people adopt the one that favors them at that particular time. Just like when you look at financial reporting, are you adopting your investment? Is it held to maturity, or you are doing holding for trading? The rules forbid you from just switching your asset from one rule. If the condition favors you at that particular time, you have to stick to one rule, which is what the MBS, I think, should continue to adopt going forward.
Hope, as you said, I mean, you don't change the rules in the middle of the game, you know, when the numbers do not favor you. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ayodele. Thank you. We really appreciate your time joining in this morning. Is the Managing Director of Pluto's Neo by AfriInvest, Dr. Ayodele.
Thank you for having me.
So the other issue affecting the economy and sipping down to Nigeria is the Trump tariffs. We know that last week we saw it in the price of oil, the talk with Venezuela on the one hand, and then, of course, the one with Iran. So we know that in 2025, President Trump launched the most aggressive trade policy in over a century, raising average effective U.S. tariff from 2.5% to about 17% by the end of the year. This year now, we've been talking about Greenland tariff shock. That's supposed to be on 8 European countries. Mind you, there are also secondary tariffs starting from 1st of February 2026. And then it's to rise to about 25 from the first day in the month of June, unless a deal is reached. That's on the Greenland. They call it trade bazooka. Retaliatory package is going to worth about 90 million euros, talking about the one that affects those 8 European countries. The Canadian oil and energy imports are currently taxed at lower 10% rate. The one with China, obviously, we know that's a big one. And then this latest one also from Iran, a tariff on Iran and any country that does business with Iran. Let's see how this will affect my pocket and your pocket. We have Professor Labisi Akingugbe, Associate Professor, Purdy Crawford Chair in Business Law at Dalhousie University in Shule School. Dr. Akingugbe, Professor Akingugbe, I beg your pardon. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Nice to join you again.
So we are discussing tariffs again. We thought President Trump was done with us, but obviously not. So when we x-ray this latest one, and the one on the European countries, 8 of them, and the one on Iran, I wonder how you see it affecting us back home here.
Well, thank you very much. It's an interesting time. It's, as you said, almost a year into Trump's presidency, and the chaos that it started with has, in fact, returned. I think there are two major activities from the international trade scene that we need to highlight to really come to the Nigerian context, which is that earlier last week, based on the ongoing protests in Iran, President Trump had gone to his own through social media to post that any country that trades with or conducts business with Iran and that has business with U.S. will be subjected to additional trade tariff of 25%. The second one is the ongoing, really protracted again fight for the takeover, if you like, of Greenland, and which again over the weekend has through his Truth Social come out with the threat of an ultimate 25% tariff on a handful of European countries, initially starting with about 10% though on February 1st. Now, for Nigeria, there's a direct linkage from the Iranian threat if it were to go through, although we haven't seen the flesh of around how that will be implemented. Particularly, what it means is that, as we have discussed in this program, you will recall, Trump eventually settled on a 15% trade tariff for goods that will be coming from the majority of African countries to the U.S. If Trump really were to go ahead with the implementation of the Iranian threats regarding the trade tariff, which he calls, a major issue, then you would see an additional 25% to the 15% that already exists. And that really becomes 40%, which makes it significantly unbearable for a country like Nigeria that only in 2025 signed or renewed its bilateral trade relations with Iran.
So what exactly does this mean? If we're looking at about 40%, does it mean that imports from the U.S. will now get ready to pay about 40% more? Just help us to understand in practical terms.
Thanks. In practical terms, it means that the products that Nigerian businesses that trade with the U.S., right, the taxes they're going to pay, so to say, will rise significantly to about 40%, which makes it really impossible or extremely more expensive to deal with those countries. We have a very significant, they're not our only trading partners, but we do have a significant level of trading with the U.S. And the West in general. And so, what that means is that we may have a situation where we have a lot of products with nowhere to go if our economic partners are not being diversified beyond the traditional Western states.
So we even last week, there was a trade agreement in Europe. I believe they call it MESOR, a new pact that the EU countries, Germany leading the pact, they've come into. So obviously, it's a time of realignment for a lot of countries. But I don't know if I've heard a lot of conversations of such coming from Africa, coming from Nigeria, especially. Have you?
Well, I think we are making good effort, to be honest with you. There is a significant level of geopolitical realignment going on. In fact, last week, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney in the U.S. had said, meeting with the Chinese counterpart, that the fast evolving new international economic order calls for realignment of our traditional trade relations. So where you see Canada, for example, breaking away from the U.S. and renewing its commitment with China, Nigeria is also doing the same and not relying on the traditional Western countries. And so, for example, you will see our Minister for Trade and Investment last week was out vigorously talking, and in my view, quite rightly, about the fact that we are not looking as a country to just the traditional Western partners we have again. We are looking to sign new trade agreements, which, as she said, are at different stages with various global South countries, maybe India, South Africa, Brazil, countries in that bucket, but also countries in the Gulf, right? And you will see the president came out of Dubai, I think, was it Dubai or Qatar, over the past 2 weeks, right, with series of agreements, again, buttressing the fact that things have changed and the way trade was conducted over many years has really taken a different turn. And Nigeria, I think, is one of the countries in Africa that is indeed looking to other non-traditional Western partners beyond China.
All right, so talking about that trade I mentioned with European countries, they call it Mercosur, and they have now realigned with countries like Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. But this threats to 8 European countries. How can we expect that to play out in the global trade space?
It's really a tough situation that might escalate a lot of things. I mean, on the heels of what President Trump has threatened, the European Union has urgently, right, called for a meeting, which will hold on Thursday right now. What you see is that European leaders are set to discuss the options that are available to them at that emergency meeting on Thursday. And one of the options that is available is what is called a package of tariffs of about 93 billion euros, which was threatened to really automatically kick in previously before they agreed to the 15% or so with the US in the first initial threat that happened last year. Now, if things don't go the way they want, this will kick in on February 6th. The second option that they have set, which they don't want to use, which has never been used, which when they agreed to use, was not thought that US would be the first, beneficiary of this agreement, is what is called the anti-coercion instrument. And this particular, instrument, colloquially referred to as trade bazooka, could really limit access to public tenders, investments, and banking activity, or restrict trade in services in which the US has a surplus with the European Union, including digital services. So what you see, in the context of this new one is that if it were to go through, there might be a significant escalation of the economic consequences of this across the global space. We trade with Europe. African countries trade with Europe significantly. Of course, this is not for African countries, but its effect over decision-making, over the cost of conducting business, the uncertainty that it, sends the shock throughout the economy will be felt. And, businesses will be very, very cautious in the way they make decisions as a result of this, where it's to go through and where some other resolution not found, which, as the European Union is saying, their first basis would be to still try to negotiate to avoid this present escalation.
Mm. And I think it's tomorrow, it will be exactly a year since President Trump got into office. I don't think anybody will argue with the fact that President Trump has changed the face of the world economy, trading, and and all of that, with all of the visa and immigration papers, strict rules that he's introduced and reintroduced. But when we look at it, what do you see? Is the worst over? Can we or should we expect more?
That's a very interesting question, and I mean it's indeed going to be a year, and I think to say I thought we were going into a period of a little bit of stability, but I think we shouldn't expect any kind of stability. President Trump campaigned on effectively disrupting the neoliberal economic order. He wants to change things, of course, saying, U.S. national security or the economic security is at stake, and so on and so forth. In my view, I think the uncertainty we have seen in the past year is likely going to continue. We have seen it in past weeks with Venezuela, with Iran, with this short, at South Africa, Nigeria was caught in it at some point and is still, engaged in that. So I think uncertainty that arises from all these activities is a significant further setback on economic growth. It will undermine certainly transatlantic relations, but I think all countries by now should know that. And if they're not already preparing, as Nigeria and other countries are doing in the African continent, to truly diversify their economy, then it's getting late for them. Further chaos would emerge, if you ask me, in the already fragile international economic order that is represented in the world trade regime. And I think how that will play out, we really do not know. Certainly, one commodity that has become very expensive to come by in the current economy is trust. And the basis upon which many countries relate is truly that. And if trust is gone, we really, are in for a serious ride over the next 3 years that is left in President Trump's era.
So we know that last year we had an increased intra-African trade. We celebrated that. But what else can the African continent be doing or should be doing at this time amidst all of this chaos, especially initiated by President Donald Trump?
Yeah, thank you. I think that there are at least three things we can say. I always say it's important to be cautious, to not assume, maybe sometimes because we don't know all that is going on, that these countries are not doing anything. But you've highlighted the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement and the attempts by several states, including Nigeria, through its guided trade initiative to kick off this agreement. In my view, the African countries have not put their weight enough behind this agreement. I think they have been very limited in how they have engaged with it. And so the first thing that I think needs to be done very seriously is the fact that African countries need to take extremely seriously the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and really go ahead and implement it full force. Number two is that investment into the country, an investment by entrepreneurs within the countries has to increase. A lot of what we are seeing today means that, carrying cash and investment flows outside the country is becoming much more hostile from the various kinds of restrictions that are in place across different parts of the globe today. And so African leaders must really look inwards. And the attitude that truly just looks around asking for money, debt is not bad, but asking for debt everywhere should really be cut off significantly, and more investments in the countries that will generate manufacturing jobs, that will generate jobs that will be clean energy driven, has to be very urgently invested in. And I think the third one I would highlight is one that I think is peculiar to Nigeria and some other parts of Africa. The world is moving on seriously on the issues of critical minerals. And this means that, we have a lot of these deposits of very important types of critical minerals all over Nigeria. The efforts the government is making in this administration to ensure that Nigeria is not just exporting primary products as we've always done is very important, but more has to be done to ensure that we climb higher on the value chain, on the global value chain, so that how Nigeria truly capitalizes these would really spread out in job creation and make Nigeria much more a contributor to the global value chain on issues of critical minerals.
And now the world, including Nigeria, is meeting at Davos, begins today. What should a country like Nigeria be targeting from such meetings? We have the world meeting there. President Trump is scheduled to talk on Wednesday and all that, but what kind of meetings or audience should the Nigerian team be seeking out at this World Economic Forum?
Yeah, thank you very much. Davos is back on again, and I think you are right. President Trump will be there, but President Trump is not the president of Nigeria, and it's not the economic delegation that we're most concerned with as of today. So I do think that the Nigerian delegation, again, they have always tried, but business leaders will be there from different parts of the world. These are the top, class of investors that will be there. And I'm sure the Nigerian delegation, will be out there doing what they do best, which is marketing the country, selling the opportunities that are out there. Nigeria has recently been removed from the gray list. That opens up significant door for businesses to know that the current administration is really extremely serious about what it means in terms of investing in Nigeria. Its stock trading business has gone very well the past year. So they have a lot of tools to go out there and confidently market the fact that Nigeria remains open for business. And I'm deliberate in saying remains open because it's not just opening. It just needs to be put out there in light of new and additional facts as several European countries and otherwise Western countries are closing their own doors. So for me, it will be market Nigeria, get a lot of commitments from investors and drive at those as soon as you're back home.
So much for having to wake up early and join this program. We appreciate it. Associate Professor Pody Crawford Chair in Business Law at Dalhousie University, Professor Olabisi Akingube. Let's take a break now. I do have a short gist for you. I don't know if to tell you now, but let me tell you after the break. Just something to see one of the realities in Nigerian economy. After the break, please stay with us. Welcome back. It's still Business Morning right here on Channels Television. Yes, so a certain post on X did catch our attention. If we could have that post, I guess it's something that even you have had to experience, even before now. There you have it. So an X handle owner did try to compare how much he spent in a supermarket in 2020 and how much he went back to the supermarket to buy the same items that he bought in 2020. He bought it this year, 2026. So he said last night, his name is Olabode Ifeanyi, he's on X, and he says last night I decided to buy every item on this receipt from 2020 to find out how bad things really are. And he said total price he spent in 2020 was 25,225. Total price he spent for the same, and I know it's kind of blurry because it's a lot. Total price he spent for the same items on the receipt in 2026 is what? 147,050. So a whopping 582% increase in price. So if you're a salary earner in 2020, and you have not had about 6 times increase on your salary from 2020, my brother, you're poorer. Unfortunate, but reality, that's what we see right here. And I think Ladi should come and tell me. Ladi's waiting back for Global News. But Ladi, let me just bring you in, even before we start Global News. Ladi, is this your reality or not?
Yeah, it actually makes sense because I remember around 2020, when I'd escort my wife to the supermarket.
You didn't go by yourself?
No.
Okay.
about 50,000 naira, and the trolley will be so full, back then. But, 2026, it's not the same picture.
But this is really mind-blowing.
Yes, it is actually. It's quite
almost
scary.
600%.
Yeah.
I really don't know how we survive, and that's why there was the conversation that the middle class has been wiped out of Nigeria, because if you were earning 500,000 naira a month
and you're still at that
by
level
2020, and you could comfortably go to the supermarket and feel, I mean, most lists are just daily use. Toiletries.
To fill up a trolley like that now, you're spending over 100K.
Over 100,000 naira, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
But you know how we say it now? Now God, oh.
Because I don't know how we survive.
Exactly.
But this, I mean, we have to thank Olabode Fine for just painting the picture for us, because it's obviously a reality, but I guess nobody has really taken time to put it in a picture and share it with the public. But anyway, that's it. But let's go to global news now.
All right, let's see what to expect. The global economy this week. A shortened but potentially market-moving week for global investors, with attention split between Davos, key UK and US data, and a major policy decision out of Japan. While US markets start the week closed for a holiday, the World Economic Forum in Davos sets a tone, for geopolitics, global economic messaging. From there, the focus shifts to the UK labor market, inflation, US housing and GDP data, and finally, global PMI readings and the Bank of Japan's interest rate decision. Even, with, fewer trading days in the US, this is a week packed with signals that could shape, expectations for growth, inflation, and monetary policy, going into the weeks ahead. And, definitely we're seeing all of that play out in the markets now. A lot of risk assets starting the week down today. Even the likes of Bitcoin, falling from about $95,000, and most of the risk assets at this point. Even U.S. futures pointing red at this point. Well, let's get a check on metals now. Metals are looking great today. Talking about gold and silver. Let's get an outlook now for the commodities market. Joining me now is Daniela Corsini, senior economist, rates, FX, and commodities research at Intesa Sao Paulo. Great to have you in the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so we're seeing the usual suspects again, starting off the week strong. The gold, silver, the safe haven metals. At this point, is this giving us signal on what to expect for the week?
Yes, I think so. I think we will see a risk-off mood during the week, because all eyes will be focused on Davos in Switzerland and on the speech of President Trump on Wednesday. I think up to that moment, we will have a risk-off mood in financial markets, and so we can expect flat crude prices and gas prices, while I think silver and gold will continue rising, at least for some few days. We have now new records. Just today, we had the gold, which rose near 4,700, and silver, which is at $94, so new record high just today.
Also, looking at this, the prices right now, I'm going to single out silver, also hitting a new high today. At what point do these metals get, I feel like they're in overbought regions, and they've been there for the longest time. Do you think silver is overvalued right now?
Yes, I think so. I think both gold and silver are overvalued, but currently they are driven by momentum trading and by speculative flows. So as long as the current sentiment across financial market is so skewed toward defensive asset, I think gold and silver could continue rising. And that's why I think we can see new record high over the next couple of days, and also over the next possibly the next month. But then I expect a correction, and probably the correction will be sharper for silver than for gold, because we had a huge move in the gold silver ratio. We had a decline of more than 50% in this ratio, which moved from a peak of 104 to about 50 in a matter of a few months, and this is too much. Usually when the ratio has such a big downside movement, usually silver is going to correct in the following 12 months.
And, definitely we have investors out there that might be thinking, maybe silver, gold still have leg for, upward swings there for prices. Do you think this is a good time to still, enter either gold or silver or the safe havens, or do you still see geopolitics, uncertainty still with us most of 2026, and I guess you can still enter and hold, in this year?
What I usually suggest is not to invest in gold and silver if you have a very short time frame. If you want to have a gain in the next month or 3 months, then it's quite risky because we don't know when the market will start reversing, and when reversion take place, it will be very, very quick. If you have a very long time frame, like 5-10 years, then you can invest in silver and gold. But if your time frame is shorter, I'm not recommending to enter now.
Yeah, definitely. Nobody wants to buy the top. At this point, thank you so much, Daniela Corsini. She's a senior economist, rates, FX, commodities research at Intesa San Paulo. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's get a check on other stories. Now, we see electric vehicle maker Rivian. They've announced a major change at the top of its finance team. The company says it's appointed Azam Akhtar as its new chief financial officer, effective March 1st, bringing a seasoned executive from General Motors as it looks to strengthen its financial leadership. The current CFO, Chad Wellman, will move into a new global role overseeing finance across purchasing, supply chain, and planning and logistics right there in the company. And we see China's economy close 2025 on a slightly stronger note than expected, as fresh data released today showed growth picking up in the final quarter of the year, supported by stimulus measures and a recovery in consumption. The world's second largest economy met Beijing's full-year growth target, even as momentum remained softer than earlier in the year, and trade tensions with the United States continued to weigh on the outlook. Now we see Tesla is set to revive work on its in-house supercomputing ambitions after CEO Elon Musk announced the company will restart development of the third generation of its custom-built Dojo system. The move marks a reversal from just months ago when Tesla shelved the project and disbanded the team behind it. Those are the top stories right there in the global economy.
Thank you so much, Ladi. And just before we go, we'll take you into the markets, Nigeria's equity markets. It's still a green market from the close of Friday. Early trade, we see 0.12% of the all share in the green, sustaining the 166,000 at this time. It's at 166,341.37. So I guess we can look forward to a positive intraday to start with before we see the markets close at the end of the day, which I'll be giving you updates at the close of market today. And that's it on Business Morning. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. We appreciate your time, and we hope that it was worth your time. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Go out there, make some money, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.